Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Club Grubbery for part two of our amazing interview with Karen Kain. And the title of this program for these two episodes is the government interested in our health? And clearly, from what we've heard now, the same story is happening in America as it's happened in Australia. And we're so excited to be joined in part two by Aneeta Hafemeister from the Australian Vaccine Risk Network. So good to have you here, Aneeta. Thanks for being with us.
It's always an honor to be on, Hoodie. Thanks very much.
And you've got a beautiful backdrop there. You're on the farm, you're a farm girl, and you're working in Western Queensland, central Western Queensland. And we just love you and we love everything you're doing. And it's great to see you two interacting on the screen with us.
No, it's so great to meet Karen. It's been a long time coming.
Okay, John. So just recapping on episode one, Karen unpacked the story of the life of her beautiful daughter, Lauren. Karen, she was what, 16 when you lost her?
She was almost 16.
Right.
Yeah.
So, from what our listeners have heard so far, we can see clearly that the narrative and the government and the bureaucracies and the big pharmaceutical companies are all acting for profit against our best interests. Clearly, by now, everyone in Australia who's been following this narrative, our alternative narrative, would clearly see that the government is making us sick. They are doing it now. Whether they're doing it deliberately or not, that's for you to work out. But we're seeing a whole bunch of things like no jab, no play. We're seeing people penalised because they won't get their children vaccinated. We've been covering the story of Kiana Probert, whose children were taken off her and put into foster care in Cairns with two African men as her carers at a time when her eldest son, who's only 8 years old, Jackson, is undergoing treatment for leukemia. He needs to be with his mum. Why were they taken off her? Is she a drug addict? No. Is she a bad parent? No. She's chosen to advocate for her children, which is what mothers and fathers are meant to do. We advocate for our children. Now, in the first interview, Karen said clearly that she was a controlling pain in the backside to the authorities. Karen, that's what you're meant to be. That's what a mother does. And we're seeing this instance where just for asking for a second opinion, as this brave young mum has done in Australia, a doctor red flagged her with child protection, and her children have been snatched from her by police in traumatic circumstances. All she wants to do is integrate care with the mainstream medical narrative and the integrative narrative where people like Professor Ian Brighthope have been leading for years, using alternative methods to work in conjunction with the mainstream to bring about better outcomes. And that's what this is about. Now, John, we live in a country that is so pathetically backward in the way it's approaching our health. They are not interested in our health. Let me give you an example. I listened to an interview on ABC radio yesterday while I was driving. The government is now concerned because the instance of the uptake of tobacco or tobacco usage is dropping off. Now, they are concerned about that. Why are they concerned? Because they don't know how they're going to plug the revenue hole from tobacco excise. Now, they applied the tobacco taxes in order to stop people from smoking. Now they've created a revenue stream that they don't know how they're going to get by without. So this is how governments get this so wrong. The same interview talked about the government losing heaps of money in the petrol excise, the fuel excise that's applied to the cost of our fuel at the Bowser. That's falling away because of the uptake of electric cars, which the government has been trying to force us to get into. We've also heard from Karen and others like Aneeta how parents are victimised if their children are sick and they claim it's a vaccine injury. Every parent is treated like they're guilty. Government agencies don't come in and say, we want to support you. They come in and say, why should we support you? Because you're probably a bad parent. I'll give you a personal example of that. My stepdaughter, who is Michelle's daughter, lost a 3-week-old son to SIDS 10 years ago. 10 years ago that happened. She was distressed. When she called 000, which is our equivalent of 911, the police and the ambulance turned up. The baby was put in an ambulance and taken away, and the mother was arrested. She was taken in her pajamas to police headquarters, where she remained for 17 hours under interrogation, not knowing the state of her baby, where her baby was, not being able to see her baby's body, and she was being accused of manslaughter or murder until it was proven that she didn't do it. She had menstrual blood on her pajamas. And because of that, she was accused and treated like a criminal. The same thing is happening if you're a parent of a vaccine-injured child and you speak up, you're treated like a criminal. The same thing is happening with Infected Bloods Australia, when people who've had tainted blood products for the last 30 years, covered up by the government, stand up and try and get support for that, they get treated like criminals and no support at all. We've had people in this country mandated against their will to keep their jobs to get a COVID-19 vaccine, which is killing them and making them very sick. And when they go for compensation, John, what happens with the compensation scheme? It doesn't give a brass razoo, because it's designed to protect the government from litigation, and the government is protecting the big pharmaceutical companies because they need somebody to invent these medicines to save us from ourselves. This is crackers. Government is too involved. Government must withdraw from our lives. Our health is our business. We have lost the right to a second opinion. We have lost the right to bodily autonomy. We have lost the right to voluntary informed consent. These are basic rights enshrined by the Nuremberg Code of at the end of World War II. And our governments are treating us like criminals, and they're treating us like we don't have any say. So may this story that you've heard up to now and what we're going to unpack in the next hour really bring this home, because it's time to make a change. So I once again want to thank you, Karen, for being on and being patient with us, and thanks for having us on, being on the show too, Aneeta. So let's go back to you, Karen, and please let's feel free to interject wherever you need to, Aneeta, in this. Let's go back to where you've now participated in a board which is set up to review vaccine injuries.
And they're the board that compensates. So it's extremely complicated. So I came on this board as a parent, and because my daughter was compensated, I was qualified to be on the board. I was asked to be on the board. And so I did a ton of research. And so I am not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I've never claimed to be one. I've just had an experience. So I just share my story about my daughter, the way it happened. And I go on this board, and I'm reading tons and tons and tons of medical records and reports and all kinds of stuff. It's a lot, like shocking. I don't know if any other person would have made the efforts that I did to just try to be up on all the different reports they've done and the studies they did and the white paper and all this stuff. And my very first meeting, I'm sitting in my bedroom, because we meet quarterly, 4 times a year. And 2 of those meetings, in theory, were always in person. And we only met once in person the 3 years that I served. So I'm sitting in my room and I'm on my phone, and I've done as much research as I possibly think I could. And the meeting opens up, and I was very, very early on, and the meeting can kind of go to 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours. But when Dr. Meisner, who's the chair, he's the acting chair right now, and he's pro-vaccine, and he says something, and I asked him a question or something, and he just goes to me, he says, "No child's ever died from vaccine injury." Exactly like that. And then I'm sitting in my room, and I sit up, and I'm like looking around, even though I'm in my room, but it's just that natural thing. Like, I'm just like, what is he saying? And I wait, because I think someone's going to step in. Someone's going to step in. And so I was so shocked by that meeting, and everything that I could possibly say, Dr. Meisner attacked me on. And I'm the enemy. I know I'm the enemy. I've been treated horribly by lawyers and I've gone through the compensation program. So I know how horrible people are to parents of vaccine injured children. And so the next meeting, I introduce myself and I say, my name's Karen Kain, and I'm a parent of a child who was vaccine injured and compensated and died from her injury. And so every time I spoke after that, I said that little spiel that I'm here because my daughter was injured, compensated, and died, you know, and we actually went at it. And so um there it was anything I suggested to do. I talked about a vax done vax study and he just tore me apart, you know, and there was never anybody at all in those meetings that would say anything to support me and my views, and they just talked to me like I was an idiot. And so I would spend 20 or so hours. Jim Moody was absolutely amazing. He's like the smartest person I think I've ever met. And he would help me about the laws and about how to approach and what my goals were, what did I want to do. And our whole job is to ensure that vaccines are safer. That's all. And so we spent hours reading informations about the inserts, and so we vote on the inserts, and a lot of it was just extremely numbing. And the, NIAID, NHS, CCS, everybody got up and spoke. And, every time they would say anything, that we know that vaccines are safe and effective, and then they'd have their spill. It was just a commercial. And so I think our first meeting was in September. We met in December again, and then in March we met in person. So this is March 2019. So I am in DC and we all meet in person, and by this time we had received a letter, and HHS wanted to take, it's a table injury. So basically, if you have what's called a table injury, meaning that the vaccine is known to cause this type of an injury, then if you have it and you're the child or the parent who's going for the award, you're automatically awarded because it's a table injury, if that makes sense. This is super complicated. And a big problem there is that when we don't have gold standard testing, so we don't have an inert sterile saline tested against a vaccine, then you can't get the proper injuries, right? So this is so critical. And RFK Jr., and I've known this for years and years, but RFK Jr. just had this big, long talk about none of the vaccines are gold standard testing. What they do when they want to create a new vaccine is they test it against other vaccines. So let's say we're going to test the MMR vaccine with a brand new vaccine. Well, the MMR is known to cause seizures or dizziness or whatever those things about the MMR vaccine. Then it doesn't become a new injury. It just becomes, yeah, that's kids have that. So it's so incredibly important that our vaccines are tested with inert sterile salines, and that's the gold standard testing. Every other medication in the US is tested that way, but vaccines are not, nor have they ever been. So when I was there at the March meeting, first time I met John Howie, he was acting vice chair at the moment, and we were advised, we all received this secret document, and it was that you can't talk about it. We get this list. You can't talk about this. What they wanted to do was they wanted to take the shoulder injury off the table, meaning that if you had a shoulder injury from a vaccine, it would not be awarded, and you would have to sue the drug company, and which is like basically impossible. But so they sent us all this stuff out, and in there is like, if you talk to anybody about this, you could go to jail, and we can't talk about it until it's at the meeting. So then John Meisner brings up this thing, and we've been told don't say anything about it. And then John Meisner just says like, oh, we have to vote on the it's called SERVA injury. And then all of a sudden now, okay, so now it's in public. So now everybody can talk about it. I can talk to you. I can talk to my friends about it because now it's out in public. And so for some reason, HHS they wanted to take the shoulder injury off the table because it was getting an enormous amount of compensation. So we're paying shoulder injuries left and right because it's a table injury. They put it on, in 2017, they put this injury on the table. And in 2019, they're calling to take it off the table so they don't have to pay injuries. It makes it much more difficult for people who are injured that way to claim. And Then they don't, the HHS says we're taking it off the table. We have to vote on it, but they won't come to our meeting and tell us why they're taking it off the table or anything. They don't want to talk about it, so they don't have to. And so that's how John Howie and I, John Howie is an attorney, and so he represents a lot of people with shoulder injuries and children, and he's just this lovely man. And his term was coming to an end. And so we really bonded in this whole thing. So we ended up having very heated conversations about it's inappropriate to take this injury off the table. And it just became a big thing. And then we would have private work group meetings, and John Howie and I just bonded. And John Meisner, we were in a private work group call. And so he's a doctor, a big doctor. He's chair of this board, and we're having a private work group meeting. And he literally yelled at me for like 20 minutes. And finally I said, Dr. Meisner, if you're done attacking me, and then I said, you know, I'm going to say this. And he just was so shocked. And I think that was in April. And May, he resigned. I have no idea why he resigned, but I did call the board and I said, you know, I'm a parent. I'm not a scientist, a doctor, a lawyer. I just didn't know how, you know, why he could talk to me that way. Like, and why would he? And why am I not respected as a parent? And Tamara and the other woman, she said, you know, this has never happened and he shouldn't talk to you this way. And I don't know what happened, but like months later, he resigned. John Howie, his position had been filled and he was, you know, done because it's such a difficult job and it's such a thankless job and it takes so much time to do. And then so I think that this is like Lauren, I became vice chair. And the reason I became vice chair is because there was only 4 people on the board and the 2 people were brand new. And so it was just like this, I think, fate. So now I'm vice chair. And because Dr. Meisner left, John Howie left, so then I was acting chair for like almost 2 years. So here I am on the board of the ACCV and I'm acting chair. And I encourage you to listen to any of the meetings that I was on. And they were so incredibly abusive towards me. And it was absolutely nuts. So HHS, which are the people, they're in charge of making vaccines safe. They wouldn't let me. I was supposed to be on the schedule to speak and they wouldn't let me speak. And then we all voted to have another doctor come and talk about a vaxxed versus unvaxxed study. And we voted on it. We all agreed that he should come in March. And then Tamara told me, she goes, well, we don't have anybody on the board, so let's wait till June to have this conversation. And then 2 weeks before June came, Biden canceled the June meeting. And so then the next meeting, she tells me, oh, we're not going to have that because if it's not in the minutes, we don't have to honor that vote. So just the sheer madness of having a vote and then just pushed off. So I was on the board for 3 years, but almost a year, nothing got done. And the more I tried to have a vaxxed, unvaxxed conversation, you know, the more I was attacked. I wrote to Dr. Azar, you know, he was the HHS. He was in charge of HHS. And I wrote to him, and the shenanigans that went on as I was on this board was something like you never see. And so this is the thing, is that nobody's listening, nobody's watching. I couldn't get anyone to really talk about it. COVID's going on. And so everybody's doing COVID. Nobody wanted to really talk about the ACCV. And I'm spending, you know, 20 hours with an enormously, incredibly smart attorney. So I would come up with all of these agendas and ideas and stuff, and they treated me so incredibly horrible. It was so I got on, I think it was 2020, I believe it was 2020 in September that I was on this board. And by this time, so I'm like almost on my 3rd year, and I'm used to it. I'm ready. I know that, you know, I'm just like armored up, right? Reading tons and tons of documents and presenting my case, ready for them to just abuse me. And so finally, I said to Tamara, I said, with all due respect, Tamara, you work for me. I'm actually the chair. I'm the chair of this board right now. I don't work for you and you work for me. And I could just hear like breathing come out of the phone because they refused to allow me to get any work done. I said, this is the most explosive time in history with COVID. And you know that COVID vaccine is going to be part of the schedule soon. So we should be having all of these conversations. And in the 3 years I was on the board, and this board is supposed to be making vaccines safer, absolutely nothing got done. And it was heartbreaking. And then they kicked me off early. They let the 2 women go from the board that were on there that were part of allowing me to be so abused, because I wrote the secretary at HHS, and then I got let go and just replaced it. And it was like 3 months early to the year, and there was no parent representing the position. So the things that happened to RFK Jr. this last week, this is how you're treated, and this is how they treat parents, and this is how, it's absolutely shameful. And it's a disgrace how HHS is treating the families. And so that's why RFK Jr. really wants to take away the protection for the drug companies so they don't get sued. It's and after that, honestly, after that, I was so traumatized by all the events. I just really haven't done any advocacy. I've done a couple movies and just like interviews, but it just kind of beat me up to a place that I'm a old woman now, and there's all these new moms that can take over. And that's, and during this time I've seen Aneeta doing her stuff, and just, mothers aren't to be messed with.
And, Karen, I think Anita's probably sitting there just thinking, geez, this has all been happening in Australia, and it's just the same playbook. Anita, this must be really confronting, for you, reliving all this sort of stuff. It's going on everywhere, isn't it?
It's heartbreaking.
Well, sorry, Karen. Yeah, I'm fairly unscathed in all this, actually, John, because my children aren't vaccine injured because of brave parents like Karen who have spoke up for so many years. That's why I'm so loud, because I'm not at home caring for a very vaccine injured child like all these mothers like Karen. They are a testament to a mother's love. The things these mothers have had to go through, witnessing the injury of their child and often the death of their child, and then the treatment they receive, like it's just horror compounded on horror. And it's brutal. I don't know how else to say. It's been so brutal. No other victim class, and I'd say victim, like if you're in a car accident or you have cancer, any of those groups, it would be just unthinkable to harass and harangue parents in those situations. But if your child has a vaccine injury, it's just how it is. You have to be attacked. You have to be called a crazy anti-vaxxer, even though you obviously vaccinated your child. It's been brutal, but honestly, watching Kennedy in the Senate, it was horrific. I couldn't watch all of it. I just couldn't stomach it. I really couldn't stomach it. I could watch the clips, but we had to get here. All this awfulness and horror we have all witnessed and I've been in this 2 decades, like Karen's been in this a lot longer than me. We had to get here, and we're finally here. But as you've heard, like what Karen had to go through with Lauren, and then what she was put through on that board, the way they treat these grieving parents is just, it's just inhumane. It really is. I don't know where it springs from. I don't know really if it's the propaganda or what it is. It's stunning to see how otherwise good human beings can treat people as soon as the word vaccines is mentioned. It's been a long road.
The AVRN have been at the coalface of this in Australia. You have, as an organisation, been shunned. You've been, really put down by so many and ignored. And you're hearing these stories constantly, stories like Lauren's outcome. It's an everyday event, but governments ignore it. People ignore it. They think you're mad.
Yeah, they do. And, we tried every avenue, like the amount of attacks we've had from government departments over the years. Like we were the Australian Vaccination Network. Legislation was changed in New South Wales to force us to change our name. The HCCC tried to force us to put like a disclaimer on our website as a warning to people. And we weren't considered under legislation a health provider, but they basically changed it so that we were considered that, so they could force us to put warnings on things. Like the behind the scenes has been insane. And I have to say the abuse people like Meryl Dorey have had from groups like Stop the AVN, which we believe are pharma funded. Just the death threats she's had and police unwilling to look into even, provable death threats. It's you can't imagine the horrific things that people say, things that Meryl has been sent through the mail. But we've kept going because the babies are worth it. Yes, every day my life is someone's new injured child or another dead baby. That has been my life for 20 years, and I'm a bit jaded. It's taken its toll. It's never not sad, but you do wonder when you're going to get to the end of it. But I'll tell you what has been heartening just the last few weeks on social media. So many of those older stories are now circulating and getting a massive audience. So, we've always been trying to get this information out there. It's just people haven't been willing to hear it until now, which is tragic. But like a lot of people in this movement, until you get the brick wall to the face of a vaccine injury or death, it's not something you look into. So I'm very sorry to everyone that it took the hard way to get us here. We have tried as hard as we can all these years to get this information out there, but everyone has seen the censorship and what goes on with the media. So I'm sorry it's ugly and I'm sorry it's brutal, but can I just say I'm so relieved that we are finally here.
You must be relieved that RFK has taken the path that he has. I mean, there's some road bumps there, but I mean, it's hopeful, isn't it?
Well, it is. And we had to get there. And I saw that he had to do some deals with Senator Cassidy or something to get through the Senate vote from him. But what, we'll take it. We'll take whatever we've got to get Kennedy there. We've just got to be there and have a seat at the table. And I think once these senators and stuff that are really reluctant actually have to meet with RFK and probably hordes of mothers of vaccine injured children, the tide has turned. It really has. Like, there's no stopping this now. The truth is out and you can't go back. And quite frankly, there's too many bodies under the carpet. We've always said it has to end because you cannot injure this many children. You cannot kill this many babies. Like, there has to be a reckoning one day. And they keep adding to the schedule. My God, now they've added RSV vaccine to the schedule for pregnant women in Australia, and they're promoting that. I don't know if anyone saw the health minister's post on that, but the photo was quite creepy. It's him smiling cheerily at this little baby as it's about, its mummy's about to be jabbed. It's just... it's just, the pin cushions for babies had to end. And, hopefully Kennedy is able to. We just want transparency. We want all the stats. We want unvaxxed vax studies. That's what we want.
And Hoodie, here we are. I mean, Mark Butler, free RSV vaccine, and Daily Mail's running a story on the neurological issues that vaccine is causing. I mean, it's a joke, isn't it?
Well, it is a joke, John, and clearly our elected class, the political class in this country, couldn't read the room if their pants are on fire. Now, they need to look at what's going on over in the States at the moment. That's coming to Australia, you goons. For goodness sake, you have to rein in the bureaucracy and the corporations that are governing this country, and you have to let Australians manage their own health at least. Australian health bureaucracy has got nothing to do with health. As we said about the excises, they're worried now that they're losing tobacco excise. If they were really concerned about our health, McDonald's wouldn't be on every corner. Let's be honest. There wouldn't be Coca-Cola and Pepsi, available on street corners in vending machines. We wouldn't be smoking. People wouldn't be smoking. There's so much they can do to actively improve our health. We wouldn't be censoring alternative medicine. We wouldn't be censoring the likes of Professor Ian Brighthope, 42 years, an integrative specialist who has proven techniques with using vitamin C, vitamin D3 infusions, all these kinds of things. They're all available for our health. But what do? They censor these people. Australia, wake up. They're not interested in your health. The government is actively killing you for profit. That's the truth of it. I can't believe I'm saying it, John. Our government is killing us.
I think that what I've just felt for so long, because I've been doing this for so long, and I mean, there are a couple things come to mind, is that they look at my daughter and they're just like, that's not going to happen to me. And also, I think it's a big pill to swallow, because if you believe and know that your government's injuring you for profit, then you have to question everything. And that's just too big of a leap. Unless it happens to you, unless you see it. But, in the 2019 Nurses Manual in in the US, there's no vaccine injury. There's no adverse events even listed. And Dr. Paul Thomas, which I'm sure you guys know, he lost his license for doing a vax done vax study. I mean, that's what I was heavy hitting on, doing a vax done vax study, and they will stop at nothing. And I've heard so many stories about people being threatened, and there was a time that I thought my phone was tapped and everything, but it's trillions of dollars. It's so much money, and it's not about our health.
Look,
And they don't
Dr. Luke McClendon here in Australia, Karen, he was the head of obstetrics and gynecology for the Mater Hospital in Brisbane, a very much respected organisation, kind of like Cedar Sinai, some of the other institutions in America. He was head of obstetrics and gynecology, and he noticed in his cohort of patients a 70% increase in failed pregnancies amongst those who were vaccinated. And he did his own studies based on his own data and his own patient files, and he presented his concerns to the board of the Mater Hospital, and they sacked him.
Absolutely.
He's a father of 10 or 11 children, this wonderful man, and he went on to sell sheds for a shed construction company at a time when he's needed.
There's so much to that, and so doctors are afraid, and COVID kind of opened up a lot of conversation and information, but and of course I know you guys got hit really, really hard with the mandates, and I never thought that it was going to happen so quickly, all the restrictions on traveling and all of that, and then now here we are. But what the goal is now, that they don't want the vax done vax study, but what they're doing is they're vaccinating the pregnant women so that the babies are just never given a chance to be healthy. It's all a plan, and people just can't believe that anyone would do that. But they haven't sat in my shoes. And when I was on the board and when I was training, they sent us to DC so we could train also. And so HHS, they're the people that compensate the families that are injured. And we talked to the DOJ and a couple of the lawyers, and they were teaching us about it so we could be, better educated, which we never got to use. But they sat there and they just bragged to me. And I don't think they knew who I was, but they just got up there and bragged about how she basically said to me, she goes, "We don't believe in vaccine injury, but we believe the parents believe in vaccine injury. And if it's a table injury, we have to compensate." And I just sat there. And so when they were done talking, I shared my story. And I think they just kind of sat there. And the same woman that treated me, Nurse Fox, treated me so horrendously. She still works there. And they said that she's still very, very difficult. And they're smiling and so proud of her. They don't care. People don't care about our babies that are injured. They want us to go away. They want to keep us home and silenced and busy. And, without, it's just abuse. It's crazy. So thank you for sharing our stories and giving people a voice. And, we just have to do it. And Aneeta, she's just awesome. I love watching what she does. And she's not called to do it. She's doing it because she knows it's the right thing to do, which is pretty dang amazing.
John? It's interesting you mentioned the COVID, because Aneeta, what do you think about where COVID's led us? I mean, do you honestly believe that we'd be having these open and frank conversations about the risks of vaccines today if COVID hadn't have been brought into the system?
No, it ripped the Band-Aid off. It really did. Because, actually in 2019, we were starting to feel a bit hopeful, actually, despite the censorship that was already there. After Vaxxed came out, the documentary, and then Vaxxed 2, we were feeling some momentum. And like Del Bigtree getting the high wire going. And there was actually a meeting at the WHO, the end of 2019, where they all actually said, well, all these anti-vaxxers, they're out doing us online. Like their growth is like 1,000% higher than ours. And well, it's hard to censor them because a lot of what they're saying is actually true. Like about the ingredients and vaccines and the studies. And they said, so without creating a censorship thing, I don't know how you actually beat these people. So we were feeling a bit hopeful. And then COVID hit, and Wow. But yeah, it had to happen. And I hate to say that because I just think of people like Caitlin Goetz who have died and all the dead and injured from all this insanity the last 4 years. And it's awful. It's awful. And I'm so horrified it had to be by that everyone learned. Like we've spoke up because we didn't want it to go that way. We really didn't want it to go that way. But that's the way it's gone. And no, if COVID hadn't happened, John, you would probably still think the same way you did about us 4 years ago, you know, the crazy unwashed hippies. Interestingly, we've gone from crazy unwashed hippies to far right extremists in 4 years, which has been quite a political turnaround. Yeah, so it had to happen. And yeah, I'm devastated on the situation that got us here. But you know what I hope it does in Australia is raise awareness about no jab, no pay, and no jab, no play, because that has got to go. That has got to go. Like on this, a lot of the states, you cannot send your child to childcare, and nobody is allowed the childcare rebate, and that is how they screw parents over so very, very badly. So thank you to Russell Brand there's a slip. Russell Broadbent for championing that like that, for getting that out there on, you know, and putting that into the political discourse again, because it's got to go. It's discrimination and segregation. And we screamed about it at the time as much as we could. We did look into getting a lawsuit and going against them, but they said, you know, you'll pay probably $500,000 and you're going to fail. And I think they were right. Looking how the court cases have gone during COVID, I think they were right. But you know, that is what our focus is on now, is all the parents who don't want to vaccinate, because we get inundated with messages every week of parents who really don't want to vaccinate their kid, but they can't get childcare or they can't go to school. And, you know, it's really crueling parents now. And the amount of vaccines on that schedule is just insane. That's the thing. Parents can choose to opt out of some and they still won't get the payments. It's just crazy. So that's going to be our focus going forward now that we've got everyone's attention.
Karen Kain, it's clear from the persecution that Kennedy is going through at the moment that he's really pushing some buttons. He's over the target and the flack's coming up pretty hard and fast. They're attacking him at every level, personally and his private life. But he wasn't always anti-vaccine, was he? He wrote a book called Mercury, and he was convinced that mercury was the problem. It wasn't the vaccines, but he's changed his tune now.
I just posted because there was there's so much to say about him coming to the movement, because I saw him. I actually was speaking on the Capitol steps in California with him, and Eric was there, and they were talking about Trace Amounts, which is a great movie, and the Mercury book. And he started out by saying, when we went to see the movie, I'm a staunch Democrat, I'm vaccinated, my kids are vaccinated. And then all the moms are just like, you can't talk about mercury and not talk about vaccines. And he was just basically, I'm not anti-vax. He didn't want to go there. He didn't want to go there. And then there was one mom, and I can't remember her name, but she, I think, went to his door and brought him all of these papers, just stacks of papers of vaccine injury. And for Lauren, her vaccine was filled with mercury. And he kind of came to the other side. So it's a weird time in history. So I just posted, because there was an article about RFK Jr. that he grabbed all us moms to get on his side. And I just put a little post saying, we pulled him to our side, and he didn't want to come. And we just, he was listening to the facts and the truth. And then he started, and, now he's doing what he does. And he talks about the Gardasil vaccine. And I posted that post like 2 days ago. It's been shared almost 400 times. And it's just really a little comment that the moms, the moms are the ones that really started this movement of, raising awareness and supporting, and before the internet and before people were making money off vaccine injury. And RFK Jr. just got sucked in by the moms. He didn't suck us in. And it's just kind of gone viral. But people, of course we can't trust the news. And I'm not saying that, of course we can't. But this time does give me hope. And doing a lot of COVID, I know when I went to listen to all the doctors talk about the COVID injuries and all of that, and saw the panels, and the people who were on the panels had all been severely injured, and one man lost his son. And they were just like, why doesn't anyone listen? And I was just getting post-traumatic stress, because we've been saying that forever. And I hope it's time. I hope it's now. I mean, I have a lot more hope. And if Lauren's story helps one person make a choice, I think it explodes in the universe. And just having an idea and looking and educating, because the information is difficult, but you can find it. And, I have a man that he's my private trainer. He just had twins. And I'm just saying, it's not about your health. Read this. There's a certain vaccine that you think you should give. Look at Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. When, the first time I spoke and Andy Wakefield was there and then Dr. Brian Hooker was speaking, I sat down and I thought, finally, it's not just the mom's voice. There's lawyers and doctors, like Aneeta said, there's so many people that have been vaccine injured, and now the fathers, when COVID came out, the fathers came out. Never, never, never did I see dads at events. I've been at the Capitol forever. And then 2020, when I was at the Capitol, there were dads there. And, sadly, people listen to men sometimes more than they do moms. But, but the dads got out with COVID. And so Jim Moody said to me one time, because I told him, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And he goes, Karen, every movement has taken a long time. And he's just like, he's so wise and he's so gentle, but we just can't give up and we have to keep sharing the stories.
The societies around the world, it's particularly in westernized countries, are really quick to put labels on people who have a different point of view. So we've seen anti-vaxxers. I'm an anti-vaxxer now. I'm actually proud to be one. I thank the government for overcooking the goose and waking me up 4 years ago. You guys have got no idea. You're bringing men back to life. And I want to see more and more men stand in the breach, because we have a responsibility. And we're meant to be the spiritual leaders of our homes. We're meant to be the hunters, gatherers, and protectors. We're meant to be the roaring lion. And it's about time we got our act together, guys. And we need to stand up with our wives and be one flesh with them. But the thing that gets me is I see that there are certain groups who refer to people like us as cookers, and they refer to the memorial, the Forest of the Fallen, which is a movement that happens in Australia, as the Forest of the Fake Dead. So people who have died or been injured by vaccines are being referred to by other members of society as fake dead. And the term conspiracy theory is put on a lot of us. Ultra right-wing extremists. Now, the term conspiracy theory was coined by the FBI and the CIA after the Kennedy assassinations and the assassination of Martin Luther King to divert the narrative back to the narrative that they wanted pushed. They don't want people asking questions or digging into what actually happened. So they coined the phrase conspiracy theory. The same thing is happening now, John.
Mm. Well, that's right, Hoodie. And look, I think the difficulty is until these vaccines are stopped, I don't think that we'll really have any understanding of just how many people are affected and vaccine injured, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are living with injury and don't even realise that they are. And it's until we have this instant stop that there'll be this awakening of people saying, well, crikey, I've been living with these symptoms for 30 years and didn't even know that that was likely the instigator of the events.
4 pilots I used to work with in Qantas, have died from brain tumours in the last 4 years. My colleagues, I flew with them. Brain tumours. They all died young. Nobody's asking the question inside Qantas. Well, a few are waking up, but nobody's asking the question. I ask the question to all of you watching this. How many people do you know who are really sick for no apparent reason? Do the words of Professor Angus Dalgleish ring true, that oncologists around the world now are seeing people presenting with cancers 10 years before they normally do, and with stage 4 cancers rather than stage 1 or 2 when they normally present? Does that concern you? If you thought someone was tampering with your immune system or messing with your DNA, would you like to know about it? So stop labeling people as anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists and cookers, and look at the reality, because you are part of the problem, because you're definitely not part of the solution. And this world is getting sicker, and there's a reason for that. And our ruling class needs to read the room, and they need to pull our bureaucracies and corporations into check immediately, because the vote that the people put into the politicians is useless, John. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't translate to outcomes for citizens in countries around the world.
No, that's so true, Woody. And look, we're privileged to be able to tell the stories of people like Lauren here on this medium, so that hopefully, I mean, if we save one person's life, if we awaken somebody as to what's going on, I mean, that is just such a wonderful thing to be able to do. And I mean, what I've been able to get out of today is that I mean, Karen was not only a wonderful advocate for her daughter Lauren, but she was a beautiful mother, a wonderful mother to a beautiful girl who did live a beautiful life. And she's now going on to impact so many others 15 years later through the courage of her mother, and to be able to stand up and be an advocate not only for her daughter Lauren but everyone else. And it's beautiful, and people like Aneeta that are just in this fight because they want to do the right thing. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and it's long overdue. And Karen, I want to ask you one final question before we go, and that is, what did Lauren teach you in almost 16 years of life?
Oh, so it's impossible to answer because we need another show. I think not judging people, and I really suffer with PTSD right now. It's really heavy on my plate. Her anniversary death was December 22nd, so it always is hard for me. And I'm focusing today is like Lauren taught me so many things that I had to always practice, otherwise I would have never survived it. But I'm just trying to see the beauty in people and know that we're all just human and we're doing the best we can do. And I do that anyways, but I'm trying to take it a little deeper and just seeing the innocence of us all. And I don't judge people. And so I think I'm pretty good at that. And there's just, I'm working on self-love and dealing with my PTSD and the advocacy. It's tough, and but it's so rewarding when someone comes up and says, "Hey, I didn't vaccinate for you," and we're just educating people. So that I believe in health freedom. I believe if you want to do whatever you should want to do with your body, you have that freedom, but informed decision making. I'm not going to tell someone what to do, but I will say, here's information. This is where you can follow it. And so it's an honor. I think I'm the person I am today because of my daughter. So it's an honor and privilege to be her mother and to do this work and to meet all you guys. And now I really want to come to Australia.
Love to have
Thank
you.
you so much.
Aneeta, final comments from you?
Well, with Karen's beautiful permission, we had a photo of Lauren behind the bus driver in our Vax bus in Australia. She was the angel on that bus. So when we took off with that bus, amongst a lot of hatred in the middle of 2020, we always had Lauren there with us every day. And I have to say, I've said to Karen, Lauren's very cheeky because there would be things go missing on the bus and things happen on that bus every day. And we'd be like, Lauren, please help us out here, girl. What have you done with things? But no, it was, Karen is just amazing. Her advocacy has just been amazing. I don't think Lauren would have lived anywhere near as long as she did, but for Karen's strength and her determination to be advocate so strongly for her. That's why her story is always one I share, because it's just a testament to what this movement is all about. I know there are fathers, but honestly, it's been a testament to a mother's love, everything they go through with their children and everything they face. And they're still here trying to help other people and are still the most loving, beautiful people. It's an incredible movement to be in. I'm very, very sorry for the circumstances that I met each and every one of you, but I'm so privileged, and, it's just an honor to stand alongside you and do the work we do.
I love you.
Honours all ours. Yesterday was the 10th anniversary of the passing of our 3-week-old grandson from SIDS, which I now am convinced was caused by his vaccinations at birth.
So sorry.
And the fact that his mother was treated like a murderer,
Ugh.
and she had just lost her son, that says a lot about who we are as a people. If we accept the unacceptable like we do now, we continue to do. When we can just pass a fleeting glimpse of someone like Kiana Probert, who's struggling now to get her children back into her custody where she can feel safe, we're part of the problem. And if you go putting labels on people, you're part of the problem. Because the fact is, these two brave women and us in our own way, we're fighting for everybody. We're not fighting, we're not doing this for money. We're not doing it for kudos. We're not doing it to show ourselves off. We're doing this because people are dying, and they're dying for a reason. And John, what would you like to say to the smiling assassin, Mark Butler, our Australian Health Minister?
Well, he's in wonderful company. You know, I put him in the highest esteem with people like Mark Greenhill, the mayor of Blue Mountains, who was part of that regime that turned around the Vax bus. Um, I mean, these people are not acting in the best interests of this country. They are not acting in the best interests of people's health. They should be helping reform the system and pulling in the tentacles of people like APRA that are just demonstrating that they are not willing. They are not willing to let go. They are not willing to have a debate at the very least about the safety of vaccines and healthcare in this country, because at times healthcare in this country is not safe, and it's not in the best interests of Australians, and we need to reform it. And there needs to be a national debate about where we head with healthcare worldwide and in our own country. And I'm really hopeful, Hoodie, that somebody like RFK will be the trigger to looking at where we end up in the healthcare space, because there is such an opportunity to learn from people like Ian Bridehope going forward and end up in a better place than we are now.
Well, the Australian people need to recognise the fact that the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia, who you all put faith and trust in, I did for most of my life. They are 95% funded by Big Pharma. The fox is guarding the hen house, people. That's fact. It's not a conspiracy theory. That is fact. The government admits it. Our regulatory authority is 95% funded by the people whose drugs that they are helping to administer and push.
And overruling on autopsies, Hoodie. Let's not forget that. The TGA are using some table from the WHO, and they are altering the death outcomes of people according to some WHO table in direct opposition to the medical examiner who looked at the deceased. How can that be allowed? How can anyone comprehend that some grub at the TGA can be allowed to do this?
Well, I think we need to close with a prayer, and please allow me to do that. Lord Father in heaven, vengeance is yours. You've told us that. And Lord, while we would like to see people pay a penalty for what they've done, our main concern has got to be triage. Remove the patient from the danger. We have to stop these vaccines, all of them, every single one of them, until a thorough investigation is done. We need to restore voluntary informed consent so that if people wish to participate in vaccine programs, they can at their own peril. And we need to end the censorship so that we can have truth, because we want to bathe in the light of truth. So, Father God, we ask that you would strengthen those beautiful parents who've lost so much. Karen has not only lost her daughter, she's lost a large chunk of her life, and she lost her marriage, and eventually her husband, ex-husband, lost his life, all because of the evil that's going on in this world. Lord, we are locked in a battle between good and evil, and we thank you for sending angels like Lauren to us. We ask that you would protect her mum and protect those people that she's fighting for. And we ask you especially at this moment to be in Cairns in North Queensland with Kiana Probert, and most of all her two children who are in the custody of two men under the auspices of the Child Protection Service. Something doesn't seem right, and we need your protection. So please guide and lead us is our prayer. In your precious name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Karen, it's been so good for you to spend this time with us. We know you're going through PTSD, and I have a feeling that telling the story helps. I've seen that work, and God bless you for that. And Aneeta, you're a little champ, always the fighter, always a fighter. And to Australia, it's time to stop putting labels on people and start having compassion for each other, because we're all in the same sinking ship. So, Johnny Larder, you've often been heard to say,
You just couldn't make this stuff up.
you couldn't. Stay out of the trees, everyone, and don't forget what you did yesterday got you to today. The tide is changing, the pendulum's coming back, and it's time to wake up to what's going on and get on board, because the train's coming and it's going to knock you off the rails. God bless you all. Thanks for watching Club Grubbery, and we'll see you next time for another exciting interview as we uncover truth, because you deserve it. God bless you all, and bye for now.
Bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.